Welcome back. Let's look at some international news now. And architects from around the world will be able to submit designs for Notre Dame Cathedral's new spire. It was destroyed along with the roof on Monday night's fire, or in Monday night's fire. France hopes to rebuild the 850-year-old Gothic building in 5 years. But experts warn it could take decades. Companies and businesses have already offered over $900 million to help with the restoration. The cause of the fire is being investigated. Former Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir has been moved to a prison in Khartoum. He had been held in the presidential residence since he was overthrown last week. Protests outside the compound are continuing for the ruling Transitional Military Council to step down. The African Union is urging the TMC to hand over power to civilian rule. In London, climate change activists continue their blockade for a third day. Nearly 300 people have been arrested so far this week for blocking some of the city's most iconic locations. They are part of the Extinction Rebellion group, calling on governments to reduce carbon emissions to prevent a global climate crisis. Now, back in Africa, 5 years on, and over 100 of the kidnapped schoolgirls from Chibok in Nigeria are still missing. 164 of them were lucky to escape Boko Haram and return to their families. The fate of the remaining 112 girls remains a mystery. President Muhammadu Buhari promised to defeat the Islamist militant group and return the girls safely. Is there any hope for the safe return of the remaining girls, and what is government doing to secure them? Joining me on the line now is Nigerian journalist Nimi Princewill. Nimi, thank you so much for joining us. Nimi, just give us just tell us exactly now, what is the stature of these 112 girls? Do we even know where they are in the first place?
Well, first of all, it's pretty much the status quo as of last count, although over the years, some of the kidnapped girls have been rescued. Out of, just like you said, out of about 76 girls, rather, they were kidnapped by the insurgents. Just 164 girls have been released and reunited with their families, while just about 112 are still missing. And to add to the pain of those grieving families, the Chibok town is still, surprisingly, increasingly under attack by the various factions of the Boko Haram sect. The latest attack was just about a day ago, while the community marked 5 years since the schoolgirls were abducted. So it's really a sad and terrifying situation over there.
Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has, when he came into power the first time, he was re-elected, of course. Recently, when he first came into power, he vowed to get the girls back, and so far, nothing. Does he have the capacity? And secondly, does the Nigerian army have the capacity as well to face Boko Haram?
Well, it's a very, very big question, very, very big question, because 5 years down the line, what we have from the Nigerian government is still basically promises to ensure the eventual release of the remaining girls. I think a new series of negotiations may have to be triggered to secure the release of the girls, perhaps a prisoner swap, as was often the case. But most importantly, the Nigerian government has to show serious commitment towards locating the whereabouts of these girls in order to fast-track their release.
Very true. Now, most of us around the world, because of the Back Our Girls or Bring Back Our Girls movement, which seems to have died down a bit, are not aware that Boko Haram has kidnapped, back in 2015, kidnapped 300 other children from a school in Damasak, and also 110 schoolgirls were also kidnapped in Yobo State in February of 2018. This just seems to be continuing unabated in Nigeria.
Well, it's a really pitiable situation, the influx of kidnappings. The first was the Chibok girls and the Dapchi girls, and more captives are still being taken in the northeastern part of Nigeria. It's really pitiable, and despite the heavy presence of the Nigerian army, these perpetrators still find a way to wreak havoc. So I really think the Nigerian government really has to double its efforts to fight insurgency, contain these insurgents, and stop the high rate of kidnappings.
And lastly, Nimi, just a quick one, Bring Back Our Girls, that movement or that campaign, do you think the world has now forgotten these girls?
Well, I don't think they've forgotten the girls, though I think the momentum has died down a bit. It's not as as wild and ecstatic as it used to be. But I think there are so many civil society organizations and NGOs that are still very interested in this issue, and they're still fighting for the release of the girls. So I wouldn't say the girls have been forgotten. I wouldn't say they've been forgotten by these NGOs and civil society unions. But I think the momentum has really, really gone down a bit, but we're still trying to bring it up.
All right, thank you so much. That's Nimi Princewill, a journalist speaking to us there from Nigeria. We're talking about it's been 5 years now since over 100 or over 200 girls were kidnapped in Chibok. 112 of them have still not been returned to their families. Still up ahead, people under the age of 29 years old make up 21.4% of the electorate, and yet they remain on the margins of political messaging. Many believe it's because young people are generally apathetic. But is this really the case? We'll hear from them next.